Hi everyone, this is Julia Greider, and today we're going to be talking about how to use Zoom for video conferencing. So the first thing to know about Zoom is that there is a free version that you can have without paying anything, and there's also a subscriber version that gives you more options and will allow you to have meetings that are over 40 minutes. If you have the free version, you can only have 40-minute meetings if you have 3 or more people in the meeting. So if you need to get a subscriber version of Zoom, talk to your dean, I believe, and hopefully they may be able to set you up with one. So the other thing to know about Zoom to get started is that you're going to need to use both the Zoom website, which is just zoom.us, and the Zoom app, which looks like this. So you're going to have to sort of go back and forth between them for certain things. The Zoom app is more where you're going to actually join meetings and schedule meetings and have your meetings. And then the Zoom website has some settings that you're going to need to mess with probably that aren't available in the app. And there are also some other things that we'll walk through on here that aren't in the app. So let's talk first of all about the website. When you go here, you'll need to sign in, and then you can click on My Account over here on the right. And this will give you some information about your account, but what we're looking for mostly is over here on the left, this settings option. So Zoom has a lot of settings available that modify how you can run your meeting and modify the permissions in terms of whether participants can do certain things or only the host can do certain things, stuff like that. So there are a ton of settings available in here for different things. And I'm not going to go through all of these because there are way too many, but just be aware that there is this settings bar over here on the left, and you may need to come in here to turn on and off certain things. One thing in particular that we're going to be talking about later on is breakout rooms, and you do need to turn those on to enable them. That's if you click on In Meeting Advanced, breakout rooms are right here. You'll want to make sure that that is toggled on. Otherwise, you won't be able to use the breakout rooms. And yeah, there are a lot of other, here's another one, polling. We're going to be talking about polling. So you'll also want to make sure that polling is toggled on. And there are a lot of other features like this that you have to make sure are turned on in the settings before you'll be able to use them. Also, some settings may depend on whether or not you have a paid subscriber account or not. For example, polling is only available if you have a paid subscriber account. One other thing that is good to know about the website is if you click on recordings here, this is where you're going to access any cloud recordings you make. And we'll talk about this a little more later, but if you have a paid subscriber account, you can record your meetings to the cloud rather than to your computer. That would be local recordings, but recording it to the cloud allows you to store them online rather than having them take up space on your computer. So this is where you would find those if you have that ability. Okay, so next let's go into the actual app and take a look at some features here. So this is the Zoom app. And you're going to see at the top we have these 4 icons to help us navigate through it: home, chat, meetings, and contacts. I'm going to mostly talk today about home and meetings. Chat will allow you to message with people, and contacts allows you to add people as contacts. I'm not going to really go into those, but if you have questions about them, you can always email me. So when we're on this home tab here, we have these 4 big buttons here to help us manipulate our meetings. And just as a side note, this over here will tell you which meetings you have scheduled for today and will allow you to get into them very quickly by just hitting start here. So these 4 icons here, first of all, we have this orange one, new meeting, which will allow you to just immediately start a new meeting. If I click on this, it's telling me I have another meeting in progress, but normally it wouldn't do that. And it'll just start a meeting here. You could invite people from here, etc. So let's get out of there. Okay. So next we have schedule here. This will allow you to schedule a meeting for the future. So it'll bring up this form to create a new meeting. We'll just call it new meeting. Then you can click on these drop-down menus to choose a day and time. You can make it a recurring meeting if you want to. And you can also choose whether to require a password for the meeting. You can change the password to something else if you want, whatever you want it to be there. You can also change some settings here. So you can set the video for the host to be on or off and the video for the participants to be on or off. And if you click on advanced options down here at the bottom, this will also allow you to manage your meeting a little more closely. So you can have a waiting room, which would mean that nobody could get into the meeting until you approve them getting into the meeting, while you're in the meeting, that is. You can allow people to join before you as the host get there. You can have people be muted when they enter the meeting, although they would still be able to unmute themselves. You can automatically record the meeting, and there are a couple other things here too that we won't go into. So once you have all of this set the way you want it, you'll just hit schedule here. It's going to try to put it into my calendar app, but I don't want to do that. So then if we go into the meetings tab up here at the top, we're going to see this new meeting that I just scheduled showing up here. So this is a list on the left of all the meetings that you have scheduled for the future. And this is the one I just created. So if I click on this, it's going to tell me when it's scheduled for. It has the meeting ID. This is another place where I can start the meeting. If I just click start here, when the time comes around. I could also edit the details if I need to change something. I could delete it entirely. And also, if I click on show meeting invitation, we're going to get all the details that anybody needs to join this meeting. So we have the link for the meeting right here. There's also the meeting ID, which is another way you can join meetings. And we also have the password. Plus, all of these phone numbers here will allow people to join the meeting by phone if they can't join on their computer. So this is really how you're going to invite people to a meeting, by sending them this text. And the easiest way to do that is just to click on copy invitation right here. And that will copy all of this text to your computer's virtual clipboard. So then if you go into an email, for instance, and just right click and hit paste, then you'll be able to send this to whoever you want to invite to your meeting. So let's go back really fast to that home page again. And the other icon here I want to talk about is join. So if I click on this, this is how we could join a meeting that somebody else has scheduled. So remember we saw that meeting ID in the invitation for the meeting that we were just looking at. So this is where you could paste that in, or you could paste the link here, and then you would just hit join and you would be in that person's meeting. All right, so next I want to talk about the functions within an actual meeting. So we're going to enter this tutorial meeting that I created a little earlier. To do that, I'm just going to click on Start here. Okay. And so we have a couple of other people in this meeting, Harry Potter and Hermione Granger. And down here at the bottom is where we're going to control this meeting. So I'm just going to turn off my video really fast. There we go. So first here on the left, actually, let me make this big also. Okay. On the left here, we have the mute button, which allows you to mute and unmute yourself so that other people can or cannot hear you. It's always a good idea to have yourself muted if you're not talking, because otherwise it can create a lot of background noise for everybody else. So if I just click on this, it'll mute me. You know you're muted if there's a cross through it. We can also click on the little arrow right next to this, and this will get us into the settings, the audio settings. So if you're having trouble with your audio, you can check this out and make sure that it has the correct microphone and speaker selected. Then we have the video button here. So this allows you to turn your video on and off. And again, we have the little arrow here. So if you click on that, you can get into some video settings. This is one place where you can get to adding a virtual background. So if I click on choose virtual background here, it's going to bring me into the settings for my Zoom account. And it's going to have a few virtual backgrounds preloaded here. If I click on one of these, it's going to try to make this my background, but it's not doing a very good job, as you can tell, because it can't tell where my face ends and where the wall behind me begins, essentially. One thing we can do to try to make this better is click on this little swatch of color right here, and then choose a part of the wall that is characteristic of the wall, or maybe more different from the color of my face. Oh, that did not work. Sometimes it works better than that. Let's see. If I choose this window color, then it'll appear in the window. So essentially the idea here is you want to have a background that's as much of a solid color as you can. Ideally, you would maybe put up a sheet behind you or something. I think it'll work best if it's a green color for some reason. So if you really want to use the virtual background and it's not really working, I would try putting up a sheet behind you or finding some other solid background to use. You can also add new pictures as virtual backgrounds by clicking on this plus button. This will browse your computer, and then you could select any photo you have stored on your computer, hit open, and then it would upload it to your virtual backgrounds, and you would be able to choose it as your background. To turn off the virtual background, just click on none here. And one quick note also is another way to get into the virtual backgrounds when you're just on the main Zoom app page is to click on this little gear icon in the upper right. This gets you into the settings as well. And then you would click on virtual background right here, and we're at the same place. There are also a bunch of other settings here, which you also often have access to within the meeting. But this is another way where you can get to them without having to be in a meeting and maybe trying to talk to someone while you're trying to change your settings. You can do it beforehand. So we talked about the mute button and the video button. Next, we have the security button. This allows you to access some more settings in terms of what participants can do. You can also lock the meeting, which means that nobody else will be able to enter, even if they have an invitation. Once you lock it, nobody else can get in. And you can also remove people if you need to do that for any reason. So next we have the participants list. If I click on this, it's going to open up a list of everybody who's in the meeting. So this allows you to see who's in the meeting and also to manipulate what they're able to do and that kind of thing. So when I hover over their names, it brings up these different buttons. You can ask people to unmute. You can't actually unmute them for privacy reasons, I think, but you can request that they unmute and speak. If you hit more here, you can also make them a host of the meeting, which would give them certain permissions that maybe you want them to have, or it would allow you as the host to leave the meeting and still have there be a host in the meeting. You can allow them to record the meeting. You can change their name. If I click on this, it'll allow me to actually retype the name that would be assigned to this person. And you can also remove them here if you need to. And on your own More button, it also gives you the opportunity to rename yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my name here. There we go. And it'll tell you who's the host also. So we know it's that I'm the host right now. And these little buttons over here, sorry, the red icons will tell you who is muted and who has their video on or off. So this screen also allows you to invite people to the meeting. If you click on invite here, you'll be able to invite people from your contacts list if you have one, or you can copy the link to join the meeting, or you can copy the entire invitation. The meeting password is also here. So if you need somebody else to be in the meeting once you're already in the meeting, this is where you can go to get that information for them. This mute all button is also important because this will allow you to mute everyone in the meeting except for yourself just by clicking this one button. So if there's a lot of background noise and you don't really need anyone else to be talking anyway, you can just hit mute all, and you can choose whether or not you want participants to be able to unmute themselves, and then everybody except for you will be automatically muted. Finally, if we click on this more button here, again, we have some more settings available. We've seen all of these, I think, before pretty much, but this is another way to get to them. Okay. Next, we have the chat button. If I click on this, this is where you can chat with other people in the meeting. So you can just type something, hit enter, and it'll send it to everyone. You can also choose to only send it to a certain person in the meeting. So say I want to say something to Harry privately without everybody else knowing. I can choose his name. It'll tell me that it's only going to Harry Potter privately. Then I can hit enter, and it'll still show up in the same place as the messages to everyone, but we can tell from this that it's not everybody can see it. And then he could also respond to me privately. If you click on these three dots down here, this gives you some options in terms of who other people can chat with. So actually, I'm going to change this back to everyone. And then if I click on these three dots, we'll be able to set whether everybody can chat with everybody else, both publicly and privately. Or maybe you don't want your students, for instance, to be able to privately message each other during class. So then you could change it to just everyone publicly. So nobody could send private messages. That's up to you. You could also attach a file to the chat by clicking on this file button here. All right, next we have the share screen button. So this allows me to broadcast what's happening on my screen to everybody else in the meeting so that they can see my screen. If I click on this, it allows me to choose either to share my entire desktop, meaning that they'll see everything that's on my screen at any point in time, or I can choose a certain window that I have open. So right now I also have a Google Chrome window open, so I could just share that Chrome window with them, and then if there were any other windows I opened on my screen, they wouldn't be able to see them. They would still only see the Chrome window. So once you've selected one of those, you'll just hit share. And then the view of the screen will change a little bit. All of your controls are going to move up to the top. And it'll tell you that you're screen sharing. And then if you want to stop sharing, you can just click on stop share here, and it'll go back to normal. I'm going to go back into the share screen button to show you something else. So another option we have here is the whiteboard. And this allows you to basically have a virtual whiteboard that you can write and draw on. So if I click on this and then hit share, we're going to have this blank window with these controls across the top. So if you click on the text button here and then click somewhere in the white screen, it will come up with a text box that you can just type in. And you can use these little circles around the edge of the box to manipulate the size, and if you click on the dotted line in between the circles, you can also move the text around. Then we have the draw button here. If you click on this and then click on one of the options for shapes. So I'm just going to click on this squiggly line, and that'll let me just freehand draw whatever I want. Or if I clicked on this oval, for instance, then it would automatically create an oval when I clicked and dragged. There's also the stamp option here, which gives you some little symbols you can use. If I just click, it'll just appear where I click. The eraser will allow you to delete things that you've put on the screen. Just click on them and it'll go away. And the format button allows you to change the color and the line width of anything that you're creating on here. So if I change this to green and then go back to draw, now my box will be green. And then you can undo something that you've done. You can hit this trash can to clear the entire screen. And you can also hit the save button if you want to save this as a file that you could then share with your students, for instance, if you've done some important work on here that you want them to be able to access later. All right, so I'm going to hit stop share again to get out of the whiteboard. And so one other thing about the share screen function, I'm going to click on this again. If you ever need to share a video with the people in the meeting, you're going to want to make sure to click on share computer sound down here in the corner. Otherwise, when you play the video, they're not going to be able to hear the audio properly. So you would have the video up in a window, you would select that window and also select share computer sound and then hit share. And finally, you'll notice there's a little arrow next to the share screen button. If you click on this, this will allow you to manipulate the settings for sharing. If you click on advanced sharing options, this is how you can allow other people in the meeting to share. If this says only host can share, then only you as the meeting host are going to be able to share your screen. If you have students who need to present something, for instance, you're going to want to make sure that this is set to all participants, or else they won't be able to share their screen. Okay, I'm going to skip the polling button for a minute. We'll get back to that. The record button will allow you to record the meeting. If you click on this, when you have a paid subscriber account, it'll give you the option to either record on this computer or record to the cloud. So I briefly mentioned this earlier when we were looking at the Zoom website. If we record to the cloud, it'll save to the Zoom website and you'll be able to access it there. If you record on your computer, it'll save into your computer's files and you'll be able to access it there. So if I click on record, actually I'm going to click on record to the cloud, and then it'll change to pause/stop recording down here at the bottom. And up here at the top, it'll also say recording. It has this little red dot. So that's how you know that it's working. Then when you're all done with the recording, you can hit stop down here. We'll confirm stop recording. The other way to stop a recording is if you end the meeting, that will also automatically stop the recording. So then we would be able to access this recording on the Zoom website since we recorded it to the cloud. All right, next we have breakout rooms. So breakout rooms allow you to divide your students or the participants in your meeting up into groups that break out into separate Zoom rooms. So this meeting that we're in right now is like one room, but once we do these breakout rooms, people will go into different meetings essentially. But you won't lose them entirely because when the breakout rooms close, they'll all automatically be pushed back into this original meeting. So it's a good way to do discussion groups, for instance. So once I clicked on the breakout rooms icon down here at the bottom, it brought up this little window, which allows me to choose how many breakout rooms I want. If I click on these arrows, I can add more rooms. Let's see, I'm going to do 2 rooms. And then you can decide whether you want Zoom to automatically assign people into rooms, so just like randomly break them into groups, or you can manually assign them into groups. So I'm going to do manually right now. Then we're going to click on Create Breakout Rooms, and it'll give us as many rooms as we selected on the previous screen. So here you can give the rooms names. Let's see here. And you can delete them if you need to. Then you can also click on Assign to choose who you want to put in which rooms. So I'll click on this checkbox and that'll put Harry into the Gryffindor breakout room. Then I could assign Hermione to breakout room 2. And you can also use these buttons to move them back around. Once you assign them, it's not irrevocable. So obviously you wouldn't use this if you only had 3 people in a meeting. It would really be for a much larger meeting where you would have multiple people in each breakout room, but this is just an example of how it would work. Then down here at the bottom, we have some other options. If we click on this button, you can choose whether you want participants to be able to return to the main session at any time. You can choose how long the breakout rooms are going to last for. So maybe you want them to have like a 10-minute discussion, and then this last option here will mean that 60 seconds before that 10 minutes is up, everybody will get a little notification on their screen saying you have 60 seconds left before the breakout room closes. And then they'll know that they need to wrap up their discussion. Then they can do that. And once the breakout room closes, everybody will automatically be pushed back into this main meeting, and you can come back together as an entire group. And then once you're all set with all these settings, you can just click on Open All Rooms. They will get invitations to join the breakout rooms. They'll have to click something to confirm that, and then they'll be in their rooms. While they're in their breakout rooms, you can click on this button to send them a message if you need to, like, consider this specific question while you're in your discussions or something like that. Then if you don't want to wait for the 10 minutes to be up, for instance, if you want them to come back sooner than that, you can click on Close All Rooms, and they'll Zoom says all participants have been given 60 seconds to leave their breakout rooms, they'll have an option to click to come back to the main meeting, and then we'll all come back together in this main meeting. Okay, so that's the quick rundown of breakout rooms. Continuing here to move along our bar at the bottom, this last button is reactions. If you click on this, you can give a thumbs up or a clap emoji. So for instance, if I click on the thumbs up, it's going to show up in the corner of my screen here, and it'll just stay there for a few seconds, and then it will eventually disappear on its own. So that's kind of a handy way for people to react to things if it's a big group and it's not practical for everybody to have their microphones on, for instance. Okay, so moving on from this bottom bar, if I hover my mouse over any of these people who are in the meeting, you're going to notice that we're getting some blue buttons in the upper right-hand corner of their screen. These are similar to the options we got when we were in the participants list, looking at their options in that list. So when I click on these three dots, I get some different settings here. So those may be useful as well. We've looked at most of these already. And on your own square as well, you can use these for various things. Okay. Then you also have a couple of different options up here at the top. If you click on speaker view, that's going to only show whoever is speaking. So nobody's actually really speaking in this meeting right now. Well, if I unmute myself, then I become the one speaking. So to other people, they would be seeing my screen. I'm not going to see my own screen though, because that's not really necessary. So I would see the screen of whoever has spoken most recently, who is not myself. And you're going to notice the other people are over here on the right. So Harry's big on my screen, but then I can also see myself, Hermione. If I turn on my video, my video will be over here too, as would theirs if their video was on. And you also have these tiny little icons at the top of this bar, which allow you to manipulate how you're seeing people. So if you click on this far left one, then you're not going to see any of those videos. If you're finding that distracting, you can get rid of them and just see whoever's speaking currently. If you click on the middle icon, then you'll only see whoever's actively speaking in this box. This can be useful if the presenter is screen sharing. So then you would see their screen share here in the main part of the screen, and you could see their face over here in the little box. And then this final icon will bring it back to seeing everybody's thumbnail videos over here. Additionally, if you want to see a certain person, no matter who's talking, like maybe the professor, for instance, if you were a student, if you click on these three dots, you can then click on pin video, and then you would see, well, now I'm seeing my video, but if Harry or Hermione had their video on, we could then pin them by clicking on these three dots. I think because they don't have their video on, that option is not showing up. But then we would only see them, and even no matter who was speaking, their video would stay on the main screen here. Gonna unpin my video now. And then, so the alternative, remember we're in speaker view now, the alternative is gallery view. So if I click on that up here at the top, then it'll go back to showing everybody's screens equally, in equal size. And finally, you can click on exit full screen in the upper right-hand corner to get out of this full screen view. To get into the full screen view, it's in the same place, but it's a little more hidden. It's just this little square. If you click on that, it'll make it full screen. Okay, so the last thing is we skipped over the polling button. So I'm going to return to that really fast. To set up a poll for your meeting before the meeting begins, you need to go to the Zoom website and click on Meetings on the left-hand side. This will give you a list of the meetings that you have scheduled. So I'm going to go to the one that we created earlier in this tutorial. If I click on that and then scroll down to the very bottom of the screen, it says you have not created any poll yet. Add. So if you want to create a poll before the meeting begins, you go here, click on Add. You can enter a title for this poll. So maybe confusion. You can make it an anonymous poll if you don't want to see who answers what, or if you do want to know who answers what, then you can keep that box unchecked. So then you can type a question here. So what were you confused about in today's lesson, maybe? Then you can add various options here. So if you just click on where it says answer, you can say participants or chat or polls. And if you have single choice selected, then they can only choose one of these options. Or if you change it to multiple choice, then they can choose as many as they want. You can add more questions if you want. They'll show up just like this. And then when you're all set, you just hit save. And then this poll will be all set up for whenever you want to use it in your meeting. Alternatively, I'm currently in. If I click on polling here, remember we didn't set up a poll for this meeting before we started the meeting. So I can also set up a poll while I'm already in the meeting by clicking on polling and then just click on add a question. This will bring me into the screen where we were. So then we can create a new poll. There we go. Save. Now, if I go back into our meeting and hit polling, then the poll is all set. So basically, no matter what, you have to set it up on the website, but you can either get into it from the website before the meeting begins, or you can do it during the meeting if you want to do it sort of on the fly. Then we'll click on Launch Poll here. And everyone in the meeting would be able to see this poll. They could answer those multiple choice questions. And as they answer it, we would get the results coming in right here. Then when everyone's answered or you want it to be done, you click on End. And then you can click on Share Results, which will mean that everyone in the meeting can see the results of the poll, can maybe see what other people thought about the question. Then when you're done, just click Stop Sharing, and you can click the X to get out of this. You can also add multiple questions to a poll, or you can have multiple polls available in a meeting. Back on this website, down at the bottom where we add the polls, you can just click on Add Again if you need another poll. And finally, when you're done with your meeting and you want to get out, just click on the End button in the lower right-hand corner. This will give you the option to leave the meeting yourself, but keep the meeting going, or you can end the meeting for everybody, so nobody's still in the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting for all, and then we're all done. So that's a quick Zoom overview. Zoom has a lot of different features to help you customize how you're running your meeting. If you have questions about anything I addressed today or about anything else relating to Zoom, feel free to send me an email at jgrider@rcc.mass.edu.